Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another session of Cherished Daughters Revolution, where teens, moms come to invest today in their daughters tomorrow. Today, our subject matter is not just for girls, it's for guys too. We're going to be talking to Nikita Howell. She's our special guest from Guide. She serves as the program coordinator and focusing on underage drinking prevention. And she joined Guide in December of 2019. She works closely with the community partners to help reduce and prevent underage drinking. Prior to working for Guide, Nikita worked as a program coordinator in an after-school and summer program in Fulton and Clayton counties. She originally is from the Midwest. She got her undergraduate degree in biology from Clark Atlanta University, and then she got her master's of public health at Mercer University School of Medicine. She's a really smart lady. So Nikita is passionate about bridging the gap for underserved youth and families across the state. She enjoys volunteering with youth with the foster care system and mentoring young girls. Nikita believes that when communities are nurtured and provided with resources, all members will be successful in life. So, Nikita, we're here today to talk to you about underage drinking. Is that a really big problem among teens today?
So, yes, I think that it's always been an issue. And it's an issue that is typically overshadowed by other substances such as opioids, marijuana, and other drugs. But if you allow me, I have a statistic I'd like to share just to show how big of an issue this is. According to the 2019 Youth Risk Behavior Survey, among high school students in the last 30 days, 29% drank alcohol and 14% binge drank. The CDC says that 8% of 8th grade students and 29% of high school students reported drinking alcohol in the past 30 days. So depending on where your beliefs lie, I would say that is an issue with our teens.
When you take the number of teenagers that are here and you look at the percentage, that is a lot.
That's a huge number. Yeah,
huge number, thousands of teenagers.
Yeah. Upon thousands. That's it's not surprising, but when you say it that way, when you position the statistics, it's like, wow, that's a huge portion of our teens are drinking, and we know they are already not the best decision makers. Adolescence is not for the best decisions you'll make in your life. So to have them also doing that is just like, wow, that's. So what, Nikita, what is the average age that teens start using alcohol?
So I had to do a little research on this because I was wondering if there was anything out there that stated the exact age. And I was actually very surprised, just even based on my own experience, that the average teen boys first try alcohol at the age of 11 and teen girls at the age of 13.
Wow.
So we're talking middle school youth, 7th and 8th grade students.
That's
depending
average.
on where you're. That's average. And this is according to a report by Harvard University.
Well, that's very interesting.
That's so sobering for us as parents, especially me. You know, Karen, my son is 12, and the idea of him drinking alcohol, it's so far-fetched to me. I'm like, he would never do it. Yeah. But it's a reality that it may be something that is offered to him, and it's something that he may have access to. So I can't turn a blind eye and pretend that maybe, oh no, he won't try it. If that's the average age, that's terrifying. Wow.
Yeah.
So are there myths about that teenagers believe, like, about drinking at their age?
Absolutely. So I'm going to share just a few that I thought were the most profound, and I think that they'll hit home for your viewers. So one of the first myth is that you can drink alcohol and not get into any trouble. So that's not true. 21 is the legal age to drink, and any teenager that is caught drinking can face fines, community service, They may have to take alcohol awareness classes or spend time in jail.
Wow.
The second myth is alcohol isn't as harmful as other drugs. So that is also not true. So because the brain doesn't stop growing until the age of 25, drinking under that age increases risk for many diseases such as cancer, and it also increases the risk of to having accidents or getting injured.
Wow.
Another myth is that beer and wine are safer than liquor. So alcohol is alcohol. We know that. Of course, adults know that. But a 12-ounce beer, a 5-ounce glass of wine, and a shot of liquor have the same amount of alcohol. And I think a lot of teens don't understand that.
No, I don't think.
And and I don't think they would even think to understand, how much alcohol is even in a shot or in a beer. They, for some reason, volume or just the misconceptions with the fact that one seems safer than the other. Another myth is that everybody drinks and you need to drink to fit in. So although I gave you the statistics of those that reported drinking in the first 30 days, I will say that research shows that about almost 80% of 12 to 20-year-olds haven't had a drink in the past month. So most young people don't drink, although that is a myth or a misconception that a lot of teens think that everybody's doing it. And one major myth that I just had to mention is that, and this is for the parents, they think that their teens aren't listening to them regarding drinking and that they're influenced by their peers. But in fact, parents are the number one reason their teens don't drink. Mm-hmm. So teens who choose not to drink do so because they believe that their parents would disapprove. So I really want to say that parents need to feel empowered, that they have a bigger influence on the decision of their teens whether or not they drink.
Oh, that is so reassuring. Thank you for letting us know that we do still have that major influence and that we are that major person that's in their life for over time. So they are really looking at our behaviors and our conversations as a guide on what they should do and what they shouldn't do. Because you would kind of think, oh, well, I'm starting to lose that influence or that pull. But you're saying the research shows that while that may be, some of that may be true, but on their decision on whether or not to start, it is heavily influenced by the parents. And I love to hear that. I wanted to ask you, when you said the 29% that do say that they've been drinking, do you know where the environment in which they typically are introduced to the alcohol, those 11-year-old boys and 13-year-old girls?
So most teens that have been introduced to alcohol tend to have access in their homes. So it's not necessarily a social setting. A lot of times it's right at home or within their friends' homes. And so most of them have reported that when they have drank for the first time, it was given to them or was easily accessible.
So that would be a myth for us parents to think that they would be the first time they were introduced would have to be in a party setting. It could be a casual sleepover. It could be at your cousin's house. It could be at a barbecue while the parents are outside, the kids sneak inside. So it doesn't mean that, because I always imagine in my head, like there's a crazy party scene with red Solo cups and kids are sneaking around while the parents are out of town. I think that's bad 90s movies, but that's what comes to mind when I think about underage drinking. But thank you for sharing that, because that puts that myth that I had in my mind.
We lost your sound there for a second, Tagoya, or what did you say?
I would say thank you for putting that myth to bed for me, that imagination I made up in my mind, thanks to 80s and 90s pop culture.
Yeah, and also think about even older siblings or cousins or family friends. Like there's so many other opportunities for them to have access or to be given alcohol, and it's not just between peers. And so it's really important, I think, for parents to understand that.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. So if students do start drinking in their, in middle school or high school, does that increase their chance of alcoholism in adulthood?
So, yes, I'll say that, yes. The answer there is yes. So teens who start drinking before age 15 are 5 times more likely to develop alcohol dependence or abuse later in life than those who begin drinking at or after the legal age of 21. And this is according to the CDC. So among adolescents whose peers who drink alcohol, those whose parents binge drink are more likely to drink alcohol than those parents who do not. So this goes back into that whole idea that your teens are watching you. So it's really important that you're modeling appropriate behavior when you drink. So of course, most parents are legal age; they can do that. But your teens are watching what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. So you increase their likelihood of abusing alcohol if they witness you abusing alcohol, especially in the way of binge drinking, which is a major issue.
I was in a setting when some parents were talking to their teens about alcohol, and their teenager said, well, we've seen people drunk, but we've never seen you, mom and dad, we've never seen you drunk. And I thought that was really good for them to acknowledge, or to see their parents can have a drink but not get drunk. And hopefully they're going to, if they decide to drink when they're 21, that they can make good choices with alcohol and not exceed what they should drink. So I think that's cool that parents can still have that influence.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the side effects and health issues that come with the alcohol use in teens?
So this is one of those I had to shorten to the list of things that could happen. I mean, we're talking about a drug that teens are using. So it is absolutely dangerous. Underage drinking is dangerous for our teenagers. So youth who drink alcohol are more likely to experience legal problems, such as arrest for driving or physically hurting someone while drunk, physical problems such as hangovers or illnesses. And I mentioned earlier that it could put them more at risk for diseases later in life, such as cancer, unwanted, unplanned, and unprotected sexual activity. So this is something I'm really giving you the direct and indirect effects of underage drinking. There's the increased risk of physical and sexual violence, increased risk of suicide and homicide, alcohol-related motor vehicle crashes or other unintentional injuries such as burns, falls, or drowning. There's the misuse of other substances. So I don't like to use the term gateway drug, but alcohol uses can lead to the usage of other drugs. So that is why it is such an important substance to focus on. It also puts them at risk for changes in brain development that may have lifelong effects. So I did mention that their brain does not stop doesn't finish developing until you're 25. So if you're drinking under the age of 25, or even especially under the age of 21, you're putting yourself at risk for having issues with your brain development. And then, of course, one of the, I guess, more obvious side effects or harmful effects of it is alcohol poisoning. So in general, the risk of youth experiencing these problems is greater for those who binge drink than for those who do not binge drink.
Wow, and that's a lot.
That's a whole lot. Is it more likely for underage drinkers to be binge drinkers than just?
Yes, it is. And I have those stats that was in response to one of the other questions we will probably get to later. But yes, binge drinking is one of the primary ways that underage that teenagers are consuming their alcohol.
I never thought about that. I always just thought they were at a party drinking. I never thought that they would be binge drinking.
So although teens drink less alcohol than adults, they consume more alcohol in a shorter period of time, which is the binge drinking, than adults do.
Right.
Okay. So obviously, if you're a teenager, it's against the law to be drinking. You're supposed to be 21 before you have a drink. Is there some kind of appeal to teenagers that, we're doing something we're not supposed to do, or does that really not come into effect with it?
Could you repeat that? It was just a little fuzzy, and that may be my internet connection.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I think we are having a little bit of internet slowness here. But let's see if I can repeat my question. Obviously, they know that it's against the law, that they're 21 and they're not 21 and they're doing something that is illegal for their age. So, but alcohol is a legal drug if you're 21. So, does the fact that they're doing something they're not old enough to do make it more appealing to them?
So with any youth, as they mature, they naturally seek new challenges. And the risk of underage drinking does attract many of them. They do so because they have no idea of the negative effects on their health and behavior. Others turn to alcohol due to peer pressure or increased independence or desire for it. And some even turn to it for stress. So I would say, yes, part of it is that illegal, but I think it's more so a part of just the normal development of a child. They are wanting new challenges, they're pushing boundaries, and if they have access to alcohol or if they're in a situation where they can access it and use it, then the chances are that they may.
Very, very interesting and scary. I mean, you said stress. Stress can cause them to drink.
Oh my goodness, teenagers drinking because of stress. It's insane to imagine, but I know it happens. I actually remember I had one girlfriend, I don't know what was going on with her, but one day she came to school in high school and she had we ran track and she had a squeeze bottle and it was full of vodka or rum. And she was she was going through something and I was kind of like 16. I didn't know what to say, but you're right. It does happen.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So go ahead,
Karen. No, go ahead, Tavoya.
I was going to say, are there any signs to me as a mom that my child might be drinking? Are there any things I can keep my eye open for?
Yeah, so there are some. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, there are warning signs that could indicate that your child may be participating in alcohol use. But I want to mention before I list some of these things that these also could be indication of other substances and also normal growing pains. So these could be just a part of being a teenager. But they are, when there's more than one of the items that I'm going to list present, then I think that would constitute as a red flag. So, of course, we have mood changes. So if there's flare-ups of temper, irritability, defensiveness, if you notice school problems, so such as poor attendance, low grades, and or recent disciplinary action, rebellion against your family rules, if they've been changing friends, so if they had one friend group and just suddenly switched to another, and if they're reluctant to let you get to know the new friends, that may be an indication of what that friend group may be involved in. A nothing matters type of attitude. Maybe their appearance has changed, a lack of involvement in other interests that they had, or just general low energy. Also, more obviously, if you've seen the presence of alcohol, so if you found it in your child's room, backpack, if you smell it on their breath, that also is a clear warning sign that they're using it. And also, I would point out the physical and mental problems you may see. So if they're having memory lapses, poor concentration, bloodshot eyes, a lack of coordination or slurred speech. I know sometimes as parents, we don't want to think the worst of our kids, but if you're noticing a combination of any of the things that I just mentioned, I think that could be a warning sign that either there is a major issue or there's a major issue plus alcohol usage. Because as I mentioned before, there are various reasons that teens may drink. And it's just important to pay attention, keep your eye on your child and notice any of these changes. Because some of these are so vague that you may think, oh, it's just because of, I don't know, they had a bad day. So I think it's important to notice the patterns and a combination of those things with your teens.
Yeah, thank you, Nikita. That was really good. That was a comprehensive list. So I think that's very helpful to keep in mind.
So you may have already answered this question, but I'm having a memory lapse. So with peer pressure, is how much is peer pressure involved these days? Is it more like, I remember it was like huge when I was in high school, but I don't know if there, if bullying and peer pressure come into kids starting to drink in 2020.
Yes. I think that as long as humans have existed, peer pressure has always been a major influence, and not just underage drinking, but just any issue we see with our teenagers. But when I was going to answer this question, I kind of did some quick little research just to really see how different is it in 2020, because I know I am a millennial. And I believe teenagers now are Generation Z or something along those lines. So they're living in a totally different environment than what I'm used to, what you all are used to. It's really different. So when we're looking at peer pressure, we're looking at overt and then inadvertent. So some of that direct peer pressure would be someone offering them a drink at a party, or it may be difficult for them to say no because they don't want to seem like an outcast. Or if they notice a group of cool kids that are drinking, they may want to be a part of that, and they may drink just because they think that's what cool kids are doing, even if they're not invited to drink or haven't even been offered a drink. And then, of course, I mentioned that whole concept of everyone is doing it. I do think that that's still a factor in how peer pressure can influence your teens to drink. But there's one part that I really didn't think about that I found very interesting, is how social media plays a role in the peer pressure. So that's more of the indirect type of peer pressure. And there was a study that was published by CBS News that indicated that 3/4 of teens between the ages of 12 and 17 who saw their peers partying on social media were more likely to then do the same. And those teens who saw these were more than 3 times as likely to try alcohol. So I thought that was just astounding, because it's just as simple as them scrolling through their social media feed and they're seeing these images, which we all know social media is not real. People post what they want people to see. It's not necessarily the reality of the situation. And so, but for some teens, they're getting that perception that, hey, everybody is drinking. Look at this social media feed that I'm saw that everybody's partying, when it could be as simple as someone with a red Solo cup taking a picture, and you don't know what's in that cup, but it gives the indication that my peers are drinking. This is something that is cool. And then I also want to add that they're watching their celebrities. They're watching actors and singers and rappers and dancers or whoever it is that they like on social media, which I think is very significant for this generation, because growing up, I didn't see much of the personal lives of the celebrities I admired, but now you see everything. You see everything. You see their life from beginning to end, ups and downs. And so if they're watching a particular celebrity who's partying and drinking and having a lot of fun on social media, then that also could add to that pressure to feel as if they need to drink.
That's so good. I was going to ask you, with them being a new generation who has access to so much information that you and I did not have access to that young in life, had there been a downturn in the popularity of alcohol because of all the education they have? Because I think there's been a less appeal of smoking cigarettes because of the health risk. People think it's risky. So I was wondering if maybe alcohol is losing its appeal, but I don't think so. Not when the celebrity culture is so idolized, and that's exactly what all of the celebrities do. And I hadn't thought about that, them being able to follow their lives from like the time they wake up to the time they go to bed. Everything they post, they can see immediately. It's not like, what I kind of grew up with, or having to wait for TMZ to report on something. It's like, no, you can see it in
exactly.
But I mean,
exactly.
even TV shows, I mean, even a family sitcom shows alcohol being consumed, you know? And so it's just like in their face a lot.
Absolutely. And I think it's a big part of just our culture. A lot of parents and families and communities just do not see alcohol as, number one, a drug. You mentioned, I keep saying it's a drug. You know, I think that needs to be part of the language when we're talking about drinking, because it is a drug. Anything that alters your physical and mental state is a drug. And I just think that in our culture, we downplay alcohol. Some cultures, kids are able to drink as young as, you know, fifth grade or whatever, because it's a part of their culture. It's a part of how their families have been doing it for generations. But the reality is, even though we know what drinking does, even though we know or can easily find the statistics, because a lot of what I've shared today, you could literally, it's at your fingertips on the internet. You can literally search underage drinking or even some of specific questions, and I promise you there's a resource for it. But that doesn't always mean that that families or communities take it as serious or even think it's an issue. Now, if we talk about some of those other substances like marijuana or opioids, and we're like, oh, yes, that's a problem. But alcohol is too. So I think that our culture, just American culture, if you want to call it that, or whatever community that you're a part of, sometimes that culture is that alcohol is just not that serious. Oh, well, my grandmother drank a glass of wine every day for 100 years and she lived to be however. No, it's an issue. It is an issue. It is a drug. And I just think it starts at home on how you raise your teens to believe what you raise them to believe as far as alcohol usage.
Okay. Well, I think we're down to our last question. Can you tell us a little bit about what Guide does in Gwinnett County to reduce the use of alcohol among teens? And I know you are in DeKalb County, correct? Or am
Gwinnett.
Gwinnett. You're Gwinnett. Okay, I'm getting you confused with somebody else. But so what is your organization doing to help with this education about alcohol prevention in teens?
Okay, so of course, Guide is a prevention organization coupled with positive youth development. But I'm going to talk specifically about what I do. I am the coordinator for a grant called ASAP, which stands for Alcohol and Substance Abuse Prevention Project. We've had this grant for the past 4 years. And really, there's two goals of this particular grant that I'd like to share with you all. The first is to reduce the early onset of alcohol use among youth between ages 9 to 20. And one of the things that we do to help accomplish that goal is that we do a training for teens, which is called Alcohol True Stories, hosted by Matt Damon. And in this training, it teaches teens resiliency, healthy decision-making skills, so that they understand the consequences of drinking alcohol. It also is something that we are offering online. So if anyone is interested, if you have a teen that lives within Gwinnett County, this is a free online training. We do it live, so it takes I think it lasts about an hour and a half. And it is something that I think that would be important if you want to just educate your teens on being able to make those decisions when they're in those situations. The second goal that we have is to reduce the access to the alcohol. So I work with police departments in Gwinnett County to do compliance checks, local alcohol retailers, to make sure that they're not selling to minors. So we use underage decoys that go in, they try to purchase alcohol, and if they do, then we at that point our detectives give them the citation, and we also publish the results of those compliance checks to make sure that everyone in the community is aware of the retailers that are selling to teens, and that we actually caught them and were able to at least in some way give them the consequences of those actions by giving those citations out. We do have public service announcements that are being streamed in the Lawrenceville DMV. We also have those that are being streamed online on streaming movie services within Gwinnett County. We partner with Gwinnett Parks and Rec, so we have banners that educate parents and educate them on the fact that they do have an influence on whether their teens drink. And we also have a youth advisory board that works within the county to create public service announcements, brochures. They do community events to educate their peers and to educate their parents on the issues with underage drinking.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
I think
Yeah.
it's cool that I think it's cool that you're using teenagers to go in and catch retailers that are selling to underage students. I mean, I think that's really cool. And I guess, what about the fake IDs? How does a retailer know that that's a fake ID? I mean, because I've seen a lot of kids with fake IDs.
So what we've actually found, at least with our compliance checks, is not necessarily an issue of fake IDs. A lot of it is an issue of just not checking ID. It doesn't matter if you have a fake one, a real one, doesn't matter. A lot of times the retailers that are receiving citations, they just didn't check it. They failed to check it. I've seen instances where there are 20-year-old clerks that, this person looks like they're old enough to drink, and then they sell it to them. So that kind of falls on the education of our retailers. And in some of the cities that we partner with, those that receive citations are forced, those alcoholic retailers are forced to go back into a training to train them on how to check IDs and what does a proper ID look like.
That's good.
So in the state of Georgia, I know I've been to other states, like for instance, Tennessee, they check everybody's ID. Even if you're 99 years old, they ask to see your ID. But I don't think that's the law in Georgia. Am I correct?
I'm not sure if that is, I can't necessarily speak to the laws. I do know that they should be checking IDs regardless of age.
I worked at Quick Trip when I was a teenager, which was, a couple of years ago. And that's what we were trained. Like, I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's your mother. Ask them for ID.
Yep. Okay. Well, I think it's a good practice.
Well, is there anything that we haven't asked you about that you think would be valuable for parents to know? Or teenagers to know, for that matter?
I just really wanted to make sure I reiterate the fact that parents should feel more empowered than they do. You do have an influence on your teens. Your teens are watching you, and you can model appropriate behavior. If you do drink, you're the first stop. You are the first line of defense when it comes to whether or not your teens are drinking. So I just really want to, I think sometimes parents feel lost in this world of social media and peer pressures and everything else that can influence their teens. But I just want you all to know that your kids are watching, and they do care what you think. So if there's any questions or any other resources that you may, if anyone that is watching this that wants more information, feel free to reach out to me. My email is nikita@guideinc.org. I can help you find resources. I can give you any type of information you may need to really make you further feel empowered to influence your youth.
Well, Nikita, thank you so much. This has been a wealth of information, and I wish we had more time. So maybe when we do our virtual conference, you'll be able to attend that and provide even more information about underage drinking prevention. Thank you so much, and thank you, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Did you enjoy that episode? Well, it's not over yet. We want to keep this discussion going. Hop over to the Cherished Daughters Revolution Facebook group and leave a comment now. If this content is engaging, helpful, and empowering, please subscribe and share with your friends. Let's be real, parenting teens can be hard, but you are who God chose to guide her to adulthood. Keep going, Mom. You have everything she needs. God's equipped you for this, and we're here to help supplement. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next episode.